update your thinking continually.
The use this year of computer navigation is virtually uninhibited. They've relaxed the restrictions there. Is that going to quicken the time?
Well, of course, it must eventually quicken the time. The weather conditions are what make quick time, but for a given weather condition, all the electronic gadgetry that's available now, there's computerised assessment of the boat's performance. There's navigation systems that rely on satellites to position the yacht. There are weather fax machines where you can get printout of the weather on a piece of paper on board the yacht. It's just incredible, the advances in the last 10 years in the electronics.
Admiral's Cup restrictions, Alistair, are they at a similar stage now to the Sydney to Hobart?
Yes, it's very difficult, in fact, to stop people using this equipment. I don't mean as far as the rules are concerned, but if a yacht gets into difficulty and it's got the equipment, then there's nothing you can do to stop it using it. So as far as most ocean races and offshore races, unless they're specifically banned, which is rare, that you can now use all the equipment you want.
Well, the boat we're looking at now is Dr. Dan, who performed marvellously to make it to the heads with yachts considerably bigger than this one. We might just have a look at some of the statistics of Dr. Dan. Skipper's Rod Muir, Sydney radio personality, in fact, the boss of 2MMM FM. Previously honky-tonk woman of New Zealand, is it?
Yes, New Zealand.
And a very well-performed boat.
She's certainly got a pretty good record here. She's very much smaller, as you saw, and she came past the heads here than many of the other maxis, but she was about 4th or 5th outside the heads and is still tailing them quite closely by the looks of things.
She's a Laurie Davidson design, a development of Great Fun, which in 1982 did pretty well in the Clipper Cup series. And it's the view we have as they head south, and it looks a bit squally out there. It's not exactly inviting weather. But, no weather for women on board, you would think, at least so that's what some of the skippers think. Last count, there are about 8 women expected to be included in the crews in this year's race. Of course, there's no reason why they shouldn't be, even if some of the skippers aren't too fussed about the idea. 32-year-old Ros Lewis is doing her first Hobart this year, but her decision to go must be seen as slightly braver than most.
What separates Ros Lewis from the other women sailing to Hobart, and certainly all the men, is that she's expecting her second child in April. But she sailed 6,000 miles the last time she was pregnant and doesn't give it another thought. She and 6 others will take the 10-metre sloop Punch on its 5th journey to Tasmania. It's a yacht that does more ocean sailing than most because Ros and her husband use it as a teaching boat to train budding yachtsmen. Ros herself has done about 10,000 miles at sea in craft of all sizes.
I started on bigger yachts and skippered Icebird up to New Guinea, which was a passage of 2,000 miles. Sailed around up there, sailed her back with my husband Barry, and then did a trip, this is when I was pregnant the last time, up to Torres Strait and back on solo, and a lot of sailing since, most of it teaching.
We were 4.5 months pregnant, moving from morning sickness to seasickness. People will say you're mad.
Well, that's about right, actually. I've had a lot of morning sickness, and I'm hoping that I won't be seasick too much.
6-year-old daughter Jacqueline is reluctantly staying in Sydney with Dad, but Ros isn't too concerned about leaving her husband behind.
Probably better off without him. It's time I got out on my own, I think.
But if this little sailor has anything to do with it, Mum won't be on her own. There just could be a stowaway on Punch.
Well, I don't think there will be. Anyone who wanted to stow away to Hobart in these conditions is a brave person or silly. Punch was formerly known as Pimpernel, and it's been down about 5 times. We'll come back and check the progress of the fleet after this break.
Ticket for the new year, happy new Holden. They're going for a song.
Only till January 20, save $1,000 on superseded Chimeras. Save on new Holden Astra. Unstoppable Gemini from just $7,250. Or get terrific savings on Holden Shuttle or Holden Jackaroo.
Happy new Holden. They're going for a song. Whichever's your style, we'll make it worth your while. See what you get for your old one. Happy new Holden.
The gloves are off at Winfield Claremont Speedway on Wednesday, Boxing Night, for the CIG All-Nation Solo Cup. You'll see New Zealand's Ivan Major, the 9-times world champion, clash with international stars from Australia, England, Italy, Holland, Germany, Denmark, Finland, Czechoslovakia and Hungary. The greatest lineup of Speedway champions ever seen in Australia. Wednesday night, Boxing Night at Winfield Claremont Speedway.
255.
Bruce Yardley and the excitement of cricket. Like everybody else, he'll be off to celebrate after the game. But like everybody else, he knows the important thing is to get home safely.
Why risk your own life on the road and the lives of others after you've been drinking? Do the right thing. Appoint a skipper to drive you and your mates, or grab a cab. That way everybody's a winner, and I love winners.
Attention Perth's most beautiful girls. Enter Jeans West's Miss West Coast 1985 now. First prize is a Nissan Pulsar ET Turbo hatchback from Gordon Crump's Duncan Motors, valued at over $13,000. A Jeans West modelling contract and fashion collection. The runner-up will win hi-fi equipment from City Hi-Fi. All heat finalists will win an unforgettable Bali holiday flying Qantas, staying at the luxurious Bali Hyatt courtesy of Vacations International. So come on, girls, pick up an entry form from Jeans West and enter now.
It's the shot along the heads and now out to sea. As we mentioned previously, that's where they're all headed. And what would be happening on board at the moment, Ben?
Well, Steve, the smart crews will be settled down now. The really smart ones would have made their arrangements beforehand, and they would have set their watches, and half of the crew would now be trying to relax and maybe get a little bit of warm food, some coffee or hot soup into them, and try and get the boat down into a routine so it can run more or less like clockwork, so that there's no hassles with the people getting tired from overwork.
Yes, I guess it's pretty important to be in a routine with a race that lasts, you know, up to 3, 4, for the small boats 5, 6 days. If you've got some kind of efficiency, some kind of system going, that's the way to get the best out of your boat and crew.
Yeah, like the crew usually breaks up into 2 or 3 watch systems, and some might sail 4 hours on, 4 hours off. Others might sail 4 hours on, 6 hours off, and have 3 revolving watches. It depends on how many people there are in the crew. It's on the smaller boats it's more difficult because half the crew isn't really enough people to sail the boat properly, and if you get a situation where you need to have to call all hands on deck, well, then some of the crew don't get any sleep for a long period, whereas on the larger boats usually you can split the crew up so that half the crew really do get proper rest. Somebody once said that ocean racing was like standing under the shower tearing up $100 bills being hosed. Well, this race so far is giving people an insight into that. You can see the waves breaking over the bow of this little boat and spraying the crew, and it's not such a little boat, it's probably a 40-odd footer, and the sea makes it look quite small.
We think, we think that's Drake's Prayer, but we can't get too close a look at it because of the conditions. But she's an interesting boat, only just completed, of course. And if we have a look at the statistics on her, Peter Kurtz's new boat, he's a man who knows his way south with Love and War previously, and once more Dear Friends. Now, he only just managed to get it completed in time. But on the weekend, there were a couple of races, the AWA lead-up races, and Drake's Prayer went out in the first one and came 4th on corrected time behind Margaret Rintoul 4, and then in the second one came home first. Now, that's a remarkable performance for a boat. Its first time out. They were hoisting sails they'd never even seen before, and she, along with Margaret Rintoul 4, must be favoured to do extremely well on corrected time.
Yes, I'm sure you're right. I think that is Drake's Prayer, and she's a boat built specially for the Admiral's Cup trials in March, and has a really top crew on board and a lot of experience, and would have had no expense spared in in her preparation.
It's Peter Kurtz, having won the race twice with Love and War, and had a few goes with Once More Dear Friends.
She's been put down as the favourite, I think, for the handicap win on this race.
Peter Kurtz too, like several others, including Lou Abrams and Stan Edwards, hoping to get their yachts, their new yachts, into Admiral's Cup contention. When do those trials start, Alistair?
They'll be later on in 85. The trials are going to be down in Melbourne, and we'll be sending another top team, I suppose, to the UK